Now let's see more about the definitions and types of head injury. The acute brain injury is predominantly defined as an injury to the brain that is not hereditary, congenital, degenerative, or induced by birth trauma. That means a sort of head injury that happens after the birth of a human being. This is the definition coined by Brain Injury Association of America. But there is a slight difference between American standards and American definitions and Australian definitions. In Australia, according to the National Community Services Data Dictionary, an acute brain injury is defined as the multiple disabilities arising from damage to the brain occurred after birth. That part is okay. But the causes, it can be as a result of accidents, stroke, brain tumors, infection, poisoning, lack of oxygen, and degenerative neurological disease. In America, degenerative neurological diseases are not considered as an acute brain injury, but in Australia, degenerative neurological diseases like Alzheimer's disease is considered as an acute brain injury. That's a key difference in the definition between two countries. When it comes to the epidemiology, or the disease burden of acute brain injury, someone in Australia is hospitalized for a head injury in every 4 minutes. In 2020-21 period, there was 406,000 ED presentations with head injury, and out of that, 142,000 people were hospitalized and 2,400 people were dead. And an interesting figure is 67%, that means two-thirds of the population, head injury population, were males. Our prison is a male prison, so technically we will have more head injuries because our population is predominantly males. The types of acute brain injury, we can broadly classify the acute brain injury into two: traumatic brain injury and non-traumatic brain injury. Traumatic brain injury is the injury to the brain that occurs as a result of an external force. It can be any kind of the head hitting somewhere, or something hits the head, anything external force. A non-traumatic head injury is a head injury occurs as a result of something internal force. For example, it can be stroke or aneurysm or tumors or any kind of infections or hypoxic events. So if the head injury is caused by an external force, it's traumatic head injury. If it is caused by an internal force, it's a non-traumatic head injury. Traumatic head injury, that usually we'll get cord blues for that, is broadly classified into three: diffuse injuries, focal injuries, and hematomas. Diffuse injuries are mainly two types: concussions and diffuse axonal injury. Focal injuries we have three types: brain lacerations, brain contusions, and countercoup injury. And hematoma, we have four types based on its location: epidural, subdural, subarachnoid, and intracerebral or cerebellar, or wherever actual hematoma is. So the diffuse injuries, the first one is concussion. Concussion is not a permanent injury. It's a transient injury due to the mechanical blows. There will be a widespread disruption of neural activities, which will result in reduced or altered level of consciousness. So it's not permanent, it's just temporary, but because of a mechanical blow, a disruption of neural activity occurs, and that results in a loss of consciousness or altered level of consciousness. That is concussion. So there is no focal damage. Diffuse axonal injury is severe form of the concussion, but there is no focal injury, but microscopically, the axons of the neurons are damaged in a widespread manner. It's kind of a severe traumatic brain injury. The focal brain injuries are mainly three types: brain lacerations, contusions, and countercoup injuries. Brain lacerations are actual tearing of brain tissue. Usually occurs with open or depressed skull fractures. Contusions are also focal injuries. That means a focus of injury there in the brain. It's usually less serious type, like actual bruising of the brain tissue. But the countercope injury is a different mechanism. When you have a blow or to the head, there will be a direct damage to the brain. But brain is a semi-solid substance. So when you have a heavy blow, what happens, or when you have a heavy sudden movement of the skull, the brain will hit back at the skull as well. So that is called as countercorp injury. So the mechanism of injury will present as two different head injuries with a single movement. If you have a sudden movement like in a car accidents and all, you can have a croup injury, that's a direct hitting injury, and the brain will move back and hit back the skull at the back, the opposite side of the that direct injury. That is countercorp injury. Hematomas, that's the third category of traumatic brain injury. Hematoma means blood collection, bleeding and blood collection. It can be anywhere in the brain and within the skull. If it is within the skull, that is below the skull, but above the meninges, above the covering of the brain, above the dura mater, the topmost part of the brain, between the skull and dura mater, that hematoma is called as epidural, above dura, epidural hematoma. If the hematoma or the blood collection occurs between the layers of the meninges, the first layer dura mater and the second layer arachnoid mater, if it is between dura and arachnoid maters, it is called as subdural, below the dura mater, subdural hematoma. If it is below the arachnoid mater and above the pia mater, in between arachnoid and pia mater, it's called a subarachnoid hemorrhage or subarachnoid hematoma. If it is below the pia mater, it is within the brain, the actual brain. If it is in the cerebrum, we call intracerebral hemorrhage. If it is in the cerebellum, we'll call intracerebellar hemorrhage. These are the major classifications or types of traumatic brain injury.